New crew. If you're new, my name is Cassandra. Today we're sitting down and this is gonna be a really good video just to wrap up, wash your dishes, fold your laundry, do whatever. We are just talking about 2025 goals for the homestead, different projects we want to work on, different planting methods, just some things we want to try just to get your wheels turning. We live in zone 4B, so we still have quite a bit of time before seeds start going in the ground and the garden really starts coming to life. But this is the fun part of the year for me. Like after the new year, me and my husband really like to sit down, start making a list of spring projects, what we're looking forward to this year. Last year we had a massive project, which was the permaculture orchard. We did all of that work ourselves with the help of a handful of neighbors and some family members who came to help us plant and get everything in the ground in an efficient amount of time, so that we could not have gotten everything planted in one day without all of their help. But we did the fencing ourselves and it was a really good learning experience. So because last year we tackled our biggest homestead project we've ever done, this year things are going to be a little bit slower for us just because we have another baby due in June. So our planting, usually we put our garden in somewhere between Mother's Day and Memorial Day weekends. Those last couple weeks in May is usually when our garden goes in. Baby is due just a handful of weeks after that. Here our focus is just on what is the priority and efficiency of things. So we have a handful of lists here. My husband and I made these lists together, and I'm just going to share with you guys what our goals are as a family to kind of get the homestead into a little bit closer to the direction. I have an afternoon cup of coffee. I hope you're sipping on something delicious while we go over this list. The first thing we really want to do this year is something we've never done before. We have debated doing over the last handful of years and have just always decided that it wasn't quite the right time, and that is ducks. We spent all last year researching ducks and we've decided to do some runner ducks or walking ducks. They're different than puddle ducks. Puddle ducks are probably what most people think of when you're thinking about ducks. Mallards, those tiny little cute ducks. We don't want to do those just because they're a little bit messier. They require a lot more care. They require more water. My husband grew up in this lifestyle where I did not. So my husband has a lot more experience in these things. As a child, they raised a ton of different animals, everything from pigs to ducks to chickens to I think they did rabbits at one point. They've kind of dabbled in a lot of different things. My husband is very against ducks. They're very messy. That was like his chore and he just did not like taking care of them. Our kids have wanted ducks as long as we have had chickens, but we decided we're gonna do some walking ducks. They're less maintenance. They don't like swim in ponds and puddles and things like our puddle ducks do. That being said, we decided to get ducks this year because last year while my husband was on the road, it was also the first year the orchard was in. Our berry plants that we had just planted were getting decimated by Japanese beetles. I was out there all day for weeks on end picking beetles off, trying to just like put out traps and different things. We did not want to spray or put any sort of chemical or anything on our berry plants because they were brand new. A lot of them were plugs and we just did not want to destroy them before they even had a chance to settle in and kind of get their roots in. That being said, we also did not want to put the chickens in the orchard because the chickens won't just eat the beetles, they will eat all of the plants, and we didn't want them destroying trees and eating the berries and all those stuff like chickens will. Ducks won't do that. They'll just go in and eat the bugs. So we've decided we are going to get a small flock of ducks. We're thinking somewhere between 4 and 8, and we are going to have them so that way when we have pest issues, bugs issues. We also had a lot of Japanese beetles make their way into the garden last year, and we also had some other issues in the garden with like cabbage worms and different things like that that just I haven't had a whole lot of issues with before. And we're starting to grow more potatoes, and we know that when you're growing more potatoes, you're gonna get potato bugs. So we want to have some ducks in the mix. That way, when we have all these bug issues, we can grab some of the ducks, put them in where our bug issues are, and not worry about them dust bathing in the garden, eating tomatoes, eating peppers, and doing all those things, because a lot of the times with the chickens, they will eat some of the bugs, but they're more interested in all of the food that you're growing. And I'm excited to add some ducks to the mix. I think we'll probably be closer to 8, probably like between 6 and 8, just so that we can divide and conquer if need be. So we're really excited about those. I don't think we're gonna have to create another coop for them or anything. Our coop is big enough where we can put them in with our chickens, and I don't think it'll be too big of an issue. If it does end up being an issue, we do have a second coop that we are not using right now. We built a handful of years ago. It's still up and running. We would have to make some modifications for it to put ducks in it, but the actual structure's already there, so it wouldn't be too hard to just kind of add on to a little bit and make it like more duck friendly than chicken friendly. The second big one is last year we started growing in raised beds. We put 4 in last year, and we very much so like them. We didn't want to just put up a ton of raised beds. We've always done in-ground gardening. That's the way my husband was raised, and the little gardening that I did have experience with has also always been in-ground. So that's just what we did. That's what we started with. We still really like it. However, we are appreciating the raised bed method for certain things. There are a handful of things that we have tried years to grow here. Our soil is very compact. It's very clay-like. And for some things that's really great. For other things it's really terrible, like root vegetables. So last year we had our best carrot harvest ever. We also had things just grow a little bit better that we've been growing for years, like peppers. We've never had a super awesome pepper year. We've had some okay years, but they did really well in the raised beds last year. So we're gonna add some more raised beds. Some of my older kids also really want to have their own little garden space. So I think we're going to put in either 1 or 2 raised beds for the kids to kind of have their own things, pick their own plants, pick their own flowers, and just kind of have fun with it. And if that's something they're interested in, I totally want to take advantage of that. So we'll put some raised beds in for them. It's probably my biggest goal this year is I want to put more vegetables in the orchard. Last year we just kind of put the orchard in. I did drop some seeds in there. I tried to direct sow some things, and I actually don't think any of those things took, any of the seeds dropped, except the corn that we did in the permaculture orchard. That did pretty well last year. So I want to expand on that. I want to put more things out in the orchard. My garden is not 100% totally secure in fencing. We always have some deer issues, and the permaculture orchard has a 10-foot tall fence, so I don't have to worry about the deer in there. So I want to put some things in there that normally my deer or the deer go after. A lot of like my green beans, my snap peas, and possibly some brassicas. And I also want to experiment this year with just growing things in different areas that we've been trying to grow for a long time and have just never had any success with. One of those specifically is watermelon. I'm gonna bring you guys along with me though. My husband gave me a really great idea for a video, and basically we're just gonna try planting melons in general in a bunch of different locations in a bunch of different either pots in ground, on the trellis that we have, in the raised beds, and some in the orchard, and we're gonna see what does best and if we get anything at all. So that's I'm gonna bring you guys along for that. But I want to get more veggies in the orchard: squash, pumpkins, melons, any of my viney things that we can plant kind of underneath our fruit trees, and they will, one, act as ground cover, which will be really great, but also they'll help the soil health and all of these things. We're really looking to move more into like food forests instead of just like our in-ground, very immaculate type gardening that takes a lot of work and a lot of maintenance. So we're really hoping this year with the newborn that we can hopefully get nature to work with us and be our friend and have things be a little bit less like high maintenance, as I'm recovering postpartum and my husband is kind of helping out in areas that I would normally really tackle. We want to add some things to the permaculture orchard this year. We want to add a really big strawberry patch. We have been moving strawberries around the property for the last couple of years, and we finally put them in the permaculture orchard last year. They did okay, but like I said, a lot of them were transplants, so we're looking to buy just a bunch of actual starts, not runners, like some actual plants, put them over in the permaculture orchard, let them go, get some really nice mother plants in there, and hopefully they'll make their own runners and we'll have a really nice patch in the next couple of years. But just kind of expanding on that. And then we also want to put grapes in the orchard. We did put 3 grape plants in the orchard last year. Only one of them took, but we'll see what happens, because sometimes you think they take and then they go through that first winter and they just don't actually come back in the spring, which we will see kind of what happens in the spring when we actually get out into the permaculture orchard and see kind of like what's blooming and what starts to come back. But we definitely want to add lots of grapes. We want to get a grape trellis up and start producing those in the orchard as well. A big one for me is actually not outside at all, and that is to really get a good organization system for all of my food storage and all of my preservation equipment. Over the last handful of years, I've slowly been getting more equipment, my food storage has grown as my family has grown. We've always had a little bit of a food storage, but obviously since 2020, we've kind of stepped up our game, as a lot of people have. But our family has grown literally by 3 people. By the time we have this baby, it'll be 3 people. And our food storage needs are a lot bigger than they used to be. It takes up more space. And we have been renovating our entire basement, just trying to get things like pulled more together for our larger family size, for our larger food storage, but also just kind of fitting our family's needs a little bit better. So a big goal for us is to get just the entire basement just like in the optimal setup. We're hoping to do this obviously before the baby comes, get the food storage organized, find homes and just like really good places for all the preservation equipment. That way this summer, when I'm doing a lot of preservation projects, most likely with a baby strapped to me, I at least know where everything is. I'm not digging around for things, because the basement has just kind of been pulled apart as construction is going on down there for the last handful of years, and we are very, very, very close to wrapping it up. And once those things are done, I just can't wait to get down there, get organized, work on all those things, and pull everything back together and feel like my stuff is a little bit more organized. How realistic this next one is, but I would love to finish fencing in the garden and get some sort of fencing around my raised beds, just to try to combat the deer issue that we've had. We have tried a handful of different methods, and it's about time I just realized that I need to stop being lazy and cheap, and we put in a really good fence around the permaculture orchard, and I just need to do the same thing around the rest of our garden spaces. I've got to do it. I've got to do it. For a very long time, well, for the first handful of years we lived on this property, we never had deer issues. We just didn't. The deer did not come here because there was nothing here for them. Our house is kind of in a really weird spot. There's like over 120 acres all around us, which is nothing but farmland. It's nothing but corn or soybeans or whatever the farmer happens to be planting that year. And then there's like this 4-acre parcel that we live on, kind of right in the middle of it, and that's our house. So the deer have never come onto our property, because before we bought it, it was nothing but grass. There was literally nothing here. There was no wildflowers, there was no perennials. It was just like 3 to 4 acres of just flat grassland. That's it. But then once we moved here, we started slowly putting in perennial plants and brassicas in the garden and now the orchard, and even some of our neighbors have said that how much the wildlife has improved since we've bought this property, because they actually have somewhere to come here. So we've seen more hawks, and we've seen rabbits in our yard for the first time. We've seen squirrels in our yard for the first time. We planted a lot of trees last year. We're planting more trees in the spring. We'll talk about that in a second. But just putting things on this property for the wildlife to come in is awesome, because it shows us that what we're doing here is exactly what we want. The wildlife is coming in, and that's exactly why we moved to the country, so that we could see these things and experience these things. And it's just helps us know that what we're doing is exactly what we want it to be doing. Spring, my husband put in a beautiful pollinators patch. He put it right over our septic tank because, as you can imagine, anything over a septic tank, there's lots of fertilizer there. Our grass would get so thick and so tall. Anytime you tried to mow the grass, it would clog up the lawnmower, something fierce. Even if we cut it like every 2 or 3 days, that little patch, it didn't matter. So him and I both got so sick of cutting it. We were like, what can we do? So we laid a tarp down very early in the spring, a massive tarp. I think it was like 100 feet by like 80 feet tarp. We let all the grass die. In the spring, we pulled the tarp back. We seeded it with a ton of different perennial seeds, and we grew a really big flower patch there, and the flower patch just took off. It was fantastic. The flowers got to like 10 feet tall in spots, which was great. We didn't have to cut the grass there, and we loved it. It brought in so many butterflies, so many bees, so many birds, and the kids just like to look at it. The kids like to pick the flowers in it, just go over there and look, see what kind of caterpillars they could find, and all sorts of stuff. We're adding another perennial patch to the other side of the property just because we can, and it gave us so much joy. We're gonna do it right on the outside of the permaculture fence. We have a big kind of corner there that the county did not let us put anything in because we live on an intersection, and the way our county works is there has to be so much clearance between the stop sign and anything on our property to make sure that the intersection is clear, you can see on both sides and all of those things. So we just couldn't put the fencing there, we couldn't put any trees there, but we did check with the county. We are definitely okay to plant any type of flower there as long as it's not a tree or a fence, essentially. So we're gonna fill that big open patch in that we couldn't use for the permaculture orchard in with some perennials and some dill, some perennial herbs that actually come back here in zone 4B. And we're gonna make that space work for us, but also give all of the birds something, the bees, and then hopefully all of those things will make their way into the orchard and help the orchard out as well. Big project we are working on. This will be like right before the baby's born. I will be very pregnant, but we are adding more trees to the property. We ordered through the same websites we ordered through last year when we were ordering for the permaculture orchard and the wind block for all of our pine trees that we bought. I'll link some of those videos down below if you're interested. But we ordered through Yellow River Nurseries, which is an online website. We live in Wisconsin. It's a Wisconsin-based website, and they ship to you. So they'll deliver, which is absolutely amazing. We had all of our berries and a lot of our trees shipped right to our front door, and that's great because we live a very far distance from Yellow River Nursery, and it was free of charge. We didn't have to pay for shipping, which is fantastic. We also ordered through Sustainable Wildlife Habitats, also Wisconsin-based nursery. However, that location does not ship. That location is a hair bit closer to our house though, so we didn't mind making the couple-hour drive to go pick up some of these items and bring them back. But we ordered through Sustainable Wildlife Habitats again for more trees. We ordered a whole bunch of different types of maple trees. Last year we planted all pines because we really needed a wind block for our property, right? Like I said, we live in the middle of a cornfield essentially, and once all of the corn is down, the wind just rips through here. It's very cold. It pulls a lot of the heat away from the house. So we wanted to put something up, to help block the wind from our house, hopefully take our heating bill down. Like, we wanted to pay as much for propane, and also just adding some privacy to our property because we wanted to have a little bit of privacy. On the back half of our property here is where all of our maples are going to go. We ordered basically every type of maple we could order because we really wanted to have an array of colors in the fall. We ordered some goldens, some reds, some purples, I think some brown leafed trees. They're gonna be really beautiful, but we ordered I think like 10 of those, and we're gonna plant those along the back half of the property that we didn't plant any trees in last year. We also ordered some witch hazel trees for the orchard. Very excited about that. We also ordered more alder trees, which are a nitrogen fixing tree. Those are going to go in the orchard because we do know some of them did not transplant, they didn't take. So we want to be able to replace those in the spring right away. And we ordered more golden raspberries. Those happen to be my husband's favorite that we planted last year. Some of our berries did produce last year, which is really cool. We did not expect that at all, but the golden raspberries were by far his favorite, and some of my kids as well. So I think we ordered another 25 plants of those, and we also ordered an array of asparagus. We planted that last year. Some of it took, some of it didn't. It's gonna take a little bit of time to know exactly how much of it took. So my husband just went ahead and ordered me some more because fresh asparagus is so good. My husband is notoriously, I always joke, my pickiest eater. He even likes the asparagus. Some of the kids like the asparagus, not necessarily cooked, but like raw, just chopped out of the ground. They love it. So we ordered some purples, some whites, and some green asparagus just to get an array. And the very last thing we're working on this year, 4 years ago, after about a year of living here, my husband and I started prepping part of our yard to put in a really big shop. When we bought the house, one of the things that drew us to the property was the fact that it was just a blank canvas. There was absolutely nothing here. It was basically just like, we live on a little more than 3 acres. It was just completely open and flat to do whatever we wanted with, which is exactly what we were looking for. We wanted to build a shop, so we started prepping the pad. Me and my husband, basically we like to do things in stages when we're doing big projects. So one year we paid to have the site prepped and the concrete poured. My husband and I also put in the in-floor heating ourselves, and then the following year we put the shop up. Then last year we put the drive. Now finally this year we are putting some electrical in. We are gonna have that wired hopefully in the next couple of weeks. We're hoping that before summer hits, we'll have electrical out there, and then that way once the ground thaws, everything will be ran, and then we can just have our electric company come up and hook it up to the box, which will be great. That's the overall hope. But overall, those are all like the big goals and plans that we have for the homestead this year. A lot of things outside, some things inside, with just some organizational things and prepping for basically all of the abundance that happens outside to come inside and find its way into jars, into freezers, and all of those things. But let me know down below what you guys are working on your homestead this year, or just steps to become more self-sufficient. I think some people get super intimidated by that homestead label, but what are some things, some goals you have that you're working toward just to grow your own food maybe for the first time this year, or just to, maybe this is your first year getting chickens, or maybe it's something super simple and you're just putting some pots out on your deck and you're gonna grow some herbs and a tomato plant or something like that. We all start somewhere, and don't think that just because you have 1 or 2 pots on your deck, it's really any different than what someone does where they grow a whole lot of food, because we all have to start somewhere. We all have small goals, and we're not all in the same seasons of life. Let's make that abundantly clear. If you live in an apartment, obviously what you can produce is going to be a lot different than what I can produce here on my 3 acres, but it's also going to be a lot different than what somebody can produce on like 40 acres. So let's just be happy with where we are, excited for where we are, and excited to head into 2025, hopefully doing better than what we were last year. So much for hanging out with me today, enjoying a cup of whatever you are drinking, and I will catch you guys in another one. Bye.